Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. In today's episode, I have a mega video for you full of fall inspiration. These are some early fall DIYs to get yourself ready to start stocking up on those fall items that you will start seeing in stores, Dollar Tree. You may see them thrifting. You can pick them up and have them in mind. So whether you're starting your fall DIYs or just getting some good ideas, hopefully this video gives you the inspiration you're looking for. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. When you see your favorite project from today, remember to hit that thumbs up. But let's go make some DIYs. I am so excited with how this DIY turns out, and it's kind of questionable through the process. It was one of those I had to trust the process, and the end product is beautiful. So stay with me on this. This is just using some of those styrofoam pumpkins from Dollar Tree and a little bit of spackling, and I added a little bit of water to my spackling so it was a little bit more the consistency of like cake frosting. But you're going to have some texture in there with some little pieces of the spackling that kind of makes it look like the warty pumpkins that you've seen. So that's totally fine if your spackling is not smooth. In fact, you don't want it smooth. You want it to have more of that texture. But I'm just kind of spreading it over the pumpkin like frosting. I end up putting on some gloves because it does get a little messy. And I'm just covering all of the areas, trying to make sure that I don't need full coverage here to cover the orange. I just need coverage where it matches texture. So if I miss like a spot on the styrofoam, you're going to notice. So I just want to make sure that all of the styrofoam has a little bit of the spackling over it so the texture matches. You can kind of just see how I'm going all over like this. It's definitely messy, so just be aware of that. Now this pumpkin right here, this is completely dried, 24 hours, the spackling. I even took it outside and set it on my trampoline so I could make sure that the sun kind of really dried it well. And I'm covering it completely with some elephant chalk paint. I want this to kind of have almost like a concrete look. Now this particular one right here is another one that I had done, and I'm also painting it. So I've done two separate styrofoam pumpkins, same process, and I am painting my second one now with the same elephant chalk paint. So I'm just showing you here that I have two different ones, and I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a different technique on both of them. Either way, you just want to make sure that your spackling has completely dried, and then also let your paint dry before you move on to the next step. So on this one, I'm taking some more plaster and I'm going to spread this over my pumpkin. I know that I wanted a two-tone look with the white and the gray, and so I wanted to test out two different methods here, and I honestly don't have a preference over which one I like the best. I will say that this one has a more sturdy feel once it's done, but not enough that you would notice between the two and think that it was better than the other. So whichever method you feel like you would like to try, follow that, because they both turn out beautifully, but just slightly different. So I'm just covering this. I just wanted to be able to see a little bit of that gray peeking through. Again, kind of like a concrete feel. Now on this next one, I decided instead of doing another layer of the plaster, I wanted to just do paint and see if it works the same, because I thought, well, maybe this would be a little bit easier, and this method is a little bit easier, less messy. So it just kind of, again, depends on which one you think suits your type of DIY that you want to try. So I'm just going over with white paint. This would be fun to try with some different colors, I think. But honestly, at this point, I'm going, these just look, I just was not sure about how this was going. But I always say trust the process, and I did. And oh my gosh, I just love these. Especially if you're a crafter who likes to sell things for different boutiques or craft fairs, shows that you do. You could definitely do these. You'll have to do like kind of batch them and do the spackling on a bunch, let that dry for a day, and then move on to the next step. So it is something that'll take you a little bit of time, but you could easily do several of these, and I think that you could have a really good return for how much you've paid to make these. I think you could charge a very decent amount for these. So now I'm just moving on to the next step here, just touching up any area that I want to make sure that there's paint on. I will say that if you don't let these completely dry and you're painting them like this, what will happen is it will start to peel back. So if you notice that, just stop, let it dry some more, and then move on to the next step. I was even using my heat tool. You can kind of see at the bottom where some of that was lifting up because the bottom where it had set down hadn't dried completely. Really easy to fix though. Again, I just dried it and then just covered it with paint, and you cannot even tell. The fun part about these pumpkins is the texture that you're creating, and you really want to define that texture, almost like it's like this modern organic feel to these pumpkins. And so I just really wanted that warty texture we've created to really pop. So I felt like there was a little too much white, so I'm just taking my elephant chalk paint brush that has just a little bit, so I'm almost like dry brushing over the top of these. And that texture is so thick and so rich, it just picks up all of that little bit that's left in the brush and really defines that. Now on the flip side of that, if you feel like you have too much white, you can go back in, too much gray, you can go back in with your white brush and do the same technique. In fact, you can go back and forth until you get your desired look. Just make sure you let it dry in between each time, so that way you're not smearing the paint. You're getting that true definition between the two. I just absolutely love how this texture looks. You can see here between the two how that gray pops on that one on the right. So I just decided to do the same thing with this other one and make sure that all of that texture pops with the gray on this one. So I just do that same thing, dry brushing over this one. After you've got your desired texture on there and the colors and everything, and it's completely dry, I'm going to go in here, and this is where you can have so much fun making this look like a pumpkin and adding whatever details you would like. I really wanted to go for a very neutral feel with these. So these are just a couple of sticks from my yard or my farm that I have that I love to use for pumpkin stems this time of year. And since these are those styrofoam pumpkins from Dollar Tree, you can just push those in. They will go right into the top, and then a little bit of hot glue holds them in place. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of Spanish moss over the top. That's just going to add a little bit of softness and texture. And again, you guys know that I love to use Spanish moss in fall DIYs, especially with pumpkins, because I feel like it does look like it just goes. It feels like it's the curly, cute little vines that you get with your pumpkins. It's a good color for fall, and especially where I'm trying to stick with the neutral tones here, it's really good. So you can see with this one here, I'm just a little bit of glue. I kind of put my little stick askew so it's not quite straight up. It's kind of off to the side. You can have so much fun doing all of these details with these pumpkins here. And then I'm just going to place the Spanish moss here and kind of push that stem where I want it situated off to the side there, and just kind of let that dry. I'm taking a little bit of barn wire. This is just fencing wire. You can use whatever kind of wire that you would like, or you can even skip using the wire and do, as you'll see me in a moment, use a little bit of pitberry on them or something. I just felt like this wire really kind of brought that modern farmhouse touch into it. Looks like the little tendril curlicue vines that you get on the pumpkins naturally, and it just adds another element into it. And all I do is I just kind of bend it almost into like a U shape with the both ends of the wire. I'm just sticking that into the styrofoam, going around my stem a little bit and sticking the other end right down into the styrofoam. And so that way you're not having any sharp edges exposed or anything like that. You can touch those with some glue if you want to have them stay a little bit more permanent on there, but honestly, if you stick them down in far enough, they're not going to be coming out unless you were to like pull on them. Now on this second one over here, this is where I started to do some of the pitberry. I have some white. If you wanted to bring a color in, you could, but I just really, again, wanted these to be very neutral looking. And so I'm just going to curl these around just a little paintbrush here to get the curlicue vines on those. I'll snip it off there. And then I do the exact same thing. I just stick that wire, since these are on a wire, down into the styrofoam and just kind of curl that around the stem, and I'll stick the other end back down into that styrofoam. I just love how these are looking. You'll have to let me know what you think of these. These were so fun to create, and I really just wanted just a fun, something a little bit different. I don't know. I'm so excited to put these in my decor. I just think they're so fun. In fact, I liked the pitberry on the one so much, I decided to kind of do another little bit to put on the other one because I really thought they looked cute with that. And then in that same vein, I take a little bit of the fencing wire that I have and put a little bit of that onto the other pumpkin, so that way they're almost identical in the way that I did each of them. So if you're batch doing these, you're wanting to sell these, make it as easy as possible, make them all look the same, or you could even do a little bit different, something to speak to different buyers, different colors. But I just really think these turn out so cute. I am so pleased with how these turned out. They are exactly what I wanted them to be. You would never know that these were the Dollar Tree styrofoam pumpkins underneath here. Just look at that beautiful texture that you get on these, and just think of all the different possibilities you could do with different tones or colors that you wanted to play around with. I just think this is just such a fun, different way, different treatment to do for these pumpkins, and I just think they turn out beautiful, very classy and high-end in my opinion. I just think they're going to be so fun to have in my fall decor. I would love to know what you guys think of these. For this project, you just need a couple of cubes that are similar in size but stagger a little bit. These are just from Dollar Tree. There's just one of their main cubes on the left there from like the craft section, and then this is just another decorative cube that has some sayings all over the different sides of it. But I'm just going to paint these each with the pumpkin Waverly chalk paint just to get a really good, it takes a couple of coats on this one I'm doing now to cover all of those words. So whether or not you maybe do a coat of white over the top to start with might help kind of alleviate using so much orange. Some spray paint would work really well too. But anyway, you're just going to cover both of these with orange chalk paint. It's not rocket science, it's pumpkins. So I'm just taking a little bit of antiquing wax and going around the edge. I really kind of was thinking of a primitive type of look with these, and so I really wanted to age all of the little lines on them, all of the corners and everything. And then I'm just going to stack these with a little bit of hot glue, so that way it's just a cute little pumpkin stack. Now for the top, I just pulled out of one of the styrofoam pumpkins that I have used for another DIY in a pumpkin stack. I have like a little baggie of different stems, and it's kind of a fun thing that if you ever have a pumpkin that you don't like the stem on, change it out with another stem that you like or you have. I know that sounds maybe it sounds silly, I don't know, but I have a bag of just a bunch of different stems that I've taken out of pumpkins, and whenever I'm working with some things or need a stem, it's kind of fun just to look through there and see if you have one that you'll like, or for little projects like this. So I'm just putting a little bit of Spanish moss down. For some reason, I just love the look of using the Spanish moss with the pumpkins. I think it just brings home a really nice, cozy fall look. So if you don't love working with Spanish moss, you could easily just leave that off. But I just thought it was really cute. I just glued that little stem on the top there. And then I felt like it needed a little embellishment on the front here. So there's a lot of different ways or directions that you could take this. But I just put a little bit of Spanish moss, and then I just have some little cutouts. This bigger leaf is from the Dollar Tree. The smaller leaves are in a set. I believe I got it at Hobby Lobby. However, I've seen them at Dollar Tree too. So just kind of keep your eye open this time of year. They start to come out with a lot of fun fall stuff. And I just buy the little sets, and then it's just, you have it for lots of different projects. I think this little set of leaves, this is like the third year that I've had it. But I'm just going to glue that little bit of Spanish moss on the front there, and then just kind of stack those little leaves. It'd be cute to put like a little crow or a little sunflower or something. I mean, I'm just kind of working with what I already had, but I think this turns out so cute. It's going to be such a fun little shelf sitter or for a tiered tray. I just think that it has a very primitive look to me. You'll have to let me know what you think, if you think this looks like pumpkins. I know sometimes people are like, they're square, it does not look like pumpkins, but I think it does, and I think it turned out cute. So let me know what you think down in the comments. This is such a fun and easy hack and a great way to display some mini wreaths that you might find, because I feel like fall time especially, there are so many beautiful little wreaths that I just love them. It brings that cozy feel into your home, and it's such a great way to bring in some florals and some softness to your decor. Now I've just cut all of the tags off of this, and I'm just deciding on the type of ribbon that I want to use, and so that's just kind of a matter of personal preference, but you will need some ribbon to do this hack with to be able to hang your wreath. I'm going to hang it on my cupboard door in my kitchen. So I am just getting a length of ribbon. I think I get a little bit too much to begin with here. So once you get used to hanging the ribbons on your cupboard door, you'll kind of be able to eyeball a decent length that you want. It's easier, of course, though, to start with a little too much and take some off than it is to start with too little and having to cut more ribbon. But I'm just going to feed this ribbon through my wreath here and then tie it off at the top. And then I just go ahead and tie it with a knot. Now, I love to use a zip tie when I tie these off to hang these, and I'll show you the hack that I use to hang these. That's kind of what the big hack is here. But a zip tie works well because I'm going to use a command hook, and it hooks really well rather than the ribbon that I use is usually a little too thick, especially with this type of ribbon. You just want to make sure that your ribbon is going to lie flat on the front of your cupboard. You're not going to see this tied end that's going to be on the inside of your cupboard. So I snip mine down so it looks a little bit prettier, but again, your cupboards are going to be closed unless you open them, but I mean, you typically don't have people opening and going through your cupboards. So here is the zip tie. I'm just going to feed this through the knot there. That way it can hang at the angle, making the ribbon lie flat here. So I leave my zip tie open. I don't usually tighten them. I just kind of leave them pretty wide. Just kind of depends on how far you want this to hang down. Now you can see these are just the command hooks. They do sell a different brand at Dollar Tree that you can use. I just didn't have any of those because my kids steal them all the time. But you want to do this upside down. This is the big part of the hack here. So you want to have this, I'm doing my best to do this one-handed to show you that you want your hook to be hanging upside down. So I also place the sticker on upside down. And then you want to go down 3 or 4 inches from your cupboard. You don't want this at the very top. You want your ribbon to be able to hang flat, and you're going to hang this with that hook upside down. You can kind of see I'm showing you here. That way, when your ribbon comes around, you'll see exactly what I'm doing here. Sometimes it's easier to see it than to explain it. But that zip tie goes right over that hook there and hangs, and then you just want to make sure that everything goes flat. You don't want that knot to be in the way of where your cupboard door closes, so that's why you want to hang that a little bit lower. And then depending on where you want your wreath to set, that's where you determine the length of your ribbon. So you can see how beautiful this looks. Such an easy hack to do. And once you have your command hooks on there, you get to change this out for whatever season that you want. Maybe you just like some plain greenery. I love to do this at Christmas time and have all of those different wreaths, but it's just as simple as having an upside down command hook on the back of your cupboard. What do you guys think of this hack? I'm really excited about this project because I've been wanting to do it for a while now, and I've just kind of been thinking in my head what the easiest way to possibly do this would be. Now you can see my bag of beads here. This is an old Christmas tree garland that we had this on my tree growing up, that my mom updated her tree and handed me the garland. And so I took all of these beads. They kind of have a glossy finish to them, but they're perfect to paint over. But you could easily use something like this from Dollar Tree or some of their beads or anything you can find. But I just take them and I'm putting them on these little like barbecue skewers because this is how I'm going to paint them. So use whatever colors of paint you want. I use like a Merlot color, a pumpkin orange, like a corn yellow, and then just some antiquing wax. So those are the 4 colors that I ended up using, but it makes really quick work of going ahead and painting these on these skewers. And then you could see I even just use my heat tool to help dry those. So this is just some wire. It's fencing wire that my husband uses on the farm. So I just kind of steal a roll of it at a time when I feel like I need it for a project. And I end up using 3 pieces of it here. And I kind of wrap these around each other. And I mean, I didn't really know like a super great way to do this, but it ends up working pretty good. I just used some pliers there to kind of clamp it down so that way they weren't really like, they were kind of fixed together. And then Not paying attention to what color I was grabbing at all, I just went ahead and randomly picked beads to thread onto each of these 6 now you have 6 strands that you can put beads onto. So I just randomly picked colors and put them on there without even looking. In fact, I was talking to my little boy, not even paying attention. So that way you truly do get a random color. And then when you finish, I just bent the little end of that wire up so that way your beads don't come falling off of there. And I just go around the entire thing here and do the same thing. Takes you really no time at all to thread all of those on. Now I am just taking them all, I'm picking them all up here by the little bit of wire that's left at the top. You can kind of see some of my beads are falling off of there. It's all right, because I think I end up taking some off actually at the end here, because I didn't have enough wire here. So I feel like no matter what you do, like you're going to end up with enough beads. If you fill 4 barbecue skewers of beads there, you're going to totally have enough, even some left over. So you can see here, I think this is where I end up taking some off because I just want to make sure that I have enough wire to wrap together. And again, I got to this point and I didn't really know if you can think of a better way to do this, then go with that. But I just had one of the wires that was a little bit taller than all the rest, and so I took the most beads off of that one, and then I just started to wrap it around the other one. So you'll see kind of how I do that here. To make sure it was tight and I was getting it wrapped as tight as I could, I reached for, you can see I grabbed some pliers here and just grab onto that wire and help use that to go around the rest of them to make sure that it's clamping as close as it can. You just want to make sure that it comes to a point at the top with your wires and that it's not going to, your beads aren't going to fall off or anything there. And if you need to trim any of your beads or anything like that, or sand them so you don't have any sharp edges, definitely do that. You just want to make sure that, again, your beads aren't going to be coming off of there, and like the natural shape of the corn on the cob, how it comes to a point, that's what I was going for. At this point, I was super excited with how it was looking. It looks like a real little ear of corn there. I just thought it was so cute. So you could easily leave it like this. You could even take some raffia to tie on the top of it or the end of it or something like that. I guess you'd want to tie it on the end of it. That would be a super easy way. I happen to have, this is faux, I wanted to call it corn silk, but it's not corn silk, like corn husk, I guess. So this is just, it's kind of like, it looks like real, it feels like real, but honestly when you look at it you can tell it's like a fabric that they've coated with something. But I know I've seen it at the craft stores and even at Walmart, actual corn husks you could get that you could use. So just keep that in mind. But I'm just cutting some of these pieces down and then I'm gluing them together because I want them to go kind of on either side. So I'm just taking the pieces and kind of shaping it how I wanted it shaped to be able to go on my ear of corn. You can see that I'll take it and I kind of match it up with my corn. Look at how, isn't this coming together so cute? I just think this is so fun. So I kind of decided that I wanted a little bit more than just that one there. And so I have to glue each of these together here. So just using hot glue to do that. And I just kind of play around and have a little bit of fun with it and just kind of go for what feels good, I guess. And you can see here I have another little piece that I've got built up, and so these are going to go on the back of my corn. I'll show you here in just a second how I put all of these together with the ear of corn. Now that I've got a couple of these sections built up the way that I want them, I am just going to glue them together to make one big kind of fan almost. And they have wire at the bottom, so I'm just kind of bending them so that way I can get a really good bond between the two of them. And then I'll put a little bit of glue down on them, and by a little bit, I actually put quite a bit here because I wanted to make sure this stuck really well. And you just want to make sure that where you're putting the glue, you're just going to face your beads so that way they stick to that glue so you can get a really good bond between them, and so this isn't going to come off. But just looking at this, you guys, this turns out so darling. I can't be more pleased with how this turned out. It was kind of one of those projects that I really didn't know what I was doing going into it. But hey, I think it turns out so fun. So there's just a couple of other little pieces here that were left over, and I went ahead and just glued a couple more onto the side just to make it more full. I think that whatever you have to go with, and even if you wanted to skip this step completely, your corn's still going to look really, really cute. There was a couple little extra pieces that were really small and teeny, and so I just rounded off the bottom of them with my scissors, and I'm just going to glue them coming up the bottom of the corn, and that's going to give a nice finished look to the base of the corn. And then I'll take some glue and glue each of those little teeny curled
curlied ones. I mean, that's what they are. They're kind of have this curly ends to them. And so I just kind of fold this over. Looks like it has legs right there, doesn't it? But I just put a little dab of glue on each of these and just carefully push them up into the beads, so that way it looks like you've got a little bit more of that husk coming in the front. For kind of piecing this together as I went along and not really knowing what I was doing, I think it turned out really cute. I would be so excited to know if any of you guys tried this or came up with any other hacks to doing it. I think this looks absolutely beautiful, and you really could leave this up all the way through Thanksgiving. I mean, how pretty would this look in a tablescape at Thanksgiving, your Thanksgiving table? What do you guys think of this one? One of the pieces that I make for every season all year long, I make layered signs, and you have to have your main forefront sign, and I'm just showing you an option from Dollar Tree if you want to use one of those. I happen to have this other cute little pumpkin farmer's market sign I wanted to use, and the back sign I had bought at clearance at Hobby Lobby. Dollar Tree, you can put a couple of signs together to be able to do something like this, but I always on clearance look for bigger sign shapes to be able to do this with. I always need like a bigger square, and I think I paid just over $3 for this, so not much more than if you would buy a couple of Dollar Tree signs. But just, I always have stuff like this in my stash because I love making these signs so much. Now this paper is just some of the sticky wallpaper that you get from Dollar Tree. In my Dollar Tree, it's kind of down the aisle where the stencils are. There's some of that faux tin that you can find, and they have a bunch of different designs of this. It's almost like contact paper, but I think they call it removable wallpaper, but it's like a giant sticker really. So I just wanted to try my best to match up the edges so I didn't have to do any sanding or anything. And then I will just peel back that barrier there between that and this adhesive stuff, and then just gently place that down. You just want to make sure when you're putting it down that you do it slowly, rub as you go so you don't end up with any bubbles or anything like that you have to peel this. I'm just using my X-OXO knife to cut this exactly at the edge there. Now, I've made these signs before using like scrap wood or barn wood. So if you have something that already has a really nice finish to it, that you don't need to come up with something, definitely do that. You could also just use paint. I wanted a little bit of a wood look behind this, but I easily could have just painted the sign with a color and had that be that and be done with it. So I have another piece. This is just a leftover piece of this wallpaper from another project that I'm lining it up with this, so that way I can have the design continue, since my piece was a little bit bigger than just one sheet of the wallpaper. So now you've got your back all the way finished, the backing piece. You just need some styrofoam. And this is just a round piece. There's 2 of them in this package that came from Dollar Tree. If you have some leftover styrofoam or floral foam, that will work fine. You just want to be able to pop your front sign out a couple of inches or an inch or so, because we're going to put some florals around it. So you just want that to pop out, and you want it to be styrofoam so that we have something to put your florals into. So I'm just putting a liberal amount of hot glue on this. This particular styrofoam is like more dense than some of the other styrofoam, so it doesn't quite have the same, like the hot glue doesn't melt it as much. Still a little bit, but not quite as it does some of the other styrofoam. So I just make sure that you can't see the edge of this. So I'm just checking that. If I was able to, I would just use my putty knife or something to kind of scrape the edges off, so that way it was flush all the way around. So now I'm going to put some more glue on the back of this, and we're going to glue this onto the sign. And then we have our layered sign all complete and ready to add our florals and embellishment on there. So I do just eyeball this. You can do whatever method to measure. So I just am a big person that eyeballs everything. So do what you want with that. But look at all these beautiful florals that I have here. The majority, if not all of these, came from Dollar Tree. There might be 1 or 2 that didn't. Now I'm just going to show you a little hack. I put this in one of my videos last year and you guys loved it, so I just thought I would pass on the information again. A lot of times when you go to Dollar Tree to pick out florals, they're in the worst condition. Like the leaves are completely so crumpled up that they're almost unusable. And I just want you to know that all you have to do is, if you have a heat tool like this, and you can just pick these up on Amazon, I have one linked in my description box, but you just have to blast the leaves. I set them out like this. Be very careful not to melt the leaves or to burn your fingers, because I mean your heat tool is pretty hot, but just blasting a little bit of the air on it helps to straighten these out like you would not believe. I mean, it is the most amazing hack. I have taken some of the worst leaves from Dollar Tree and done this hack on them, and they turn out beautiful. You would never guess that they were in such a bad shape or bad condition. And it helps sometimes to blast them from each side. You blast them on the front, and then if you turn over and just naturally let it lay on your table and blast the back of it, it helps really well. But I mean, those leaves look great now. I mean, if you saw what they looked like before, they were a crumpled mess, and now they look absolutely beautiful, fresh, and ready to use. So I cut all of my leaves down. I think I end up using 2 full stems of leaves from Dollar Tree with different colors. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think I had, this is a little like leftover one that I had like a couple stems left on there. So depending on how full you want it, 2 you could probably get by with, 2.5 or 3. It just depends on how full you want it and how big your pieces are. I always get asked about these trimmers. They're cobalt. I got them at Lowe's, and they're just wire cutters, and they work great for doing your florals and everything. So now I just alternate the colors going all the way around, and I just stick that into the styrofoam. I don't glue them or anything. The styrofoam holds onto these really, really well. If that's something you're worried about, just put a little touch of hot glue on them as you put the flowers into them. But I just work in a circular motion. You're almost building like a wreath around this. And I've actually done it where I have placed a wreath in between. If you don't want to go to all this trouble, that works too. But I love the styrofoam hack with this and being able to add all sorts of different things into it and not having to worry about the wreath pushing your item forward or anything. So you can see I have all of those leaves in there and how beautiful it's starting to look, how full it is. I just think that this show is such a showstopper piece because you don't see these all over. Like, I have yet to find these like in actual like stores or anything. This is just something I kind of accidentally came up with some of my Christmas decor a couple of years ago, and I have been putting them in my videos ever since, and you guys love them. So I just decided to use all of the leaves that I had there, so I didn't have any left over. Again, make it as full as you want or not. The leaves would be enough. If you wanted to stop right there and not have to add any extra in, you would be just fine to stop because it's beautiful the way it is. I have these berries, however, and so I have 4 of them, so I'll stick 1 on each side of my sign since it's square. And that way, and then this one I believe did come from Joann's or Hobby Lobby or somewhere like that, and it's just these little yellowish orangish flowers. It just adds a little bit of texture. Dollar Tree has some similar stuff that you could easily use, or some bigger berries or something. Just different textures you want to go with, different types of, the leaves are pretty dense, and then you have like the wispy look of these little florals. Just kind of change up the different textures in your piece and you can't go wrong. I found these pieces at Dollar Tree, these little pumpkins with these cute leaves here. If you can't find those, even just some of like the styrofoam pumpkin scatter that you can get, use some barbecue skewers to put those through the pumpkins, and then stuff the skewers in to have the cute little pumpkin element if that's something that you're wanting to do. And then, I mean, at each step, you really could stop. I just sometimes don't know when to stop. It looks great in the end, but I just want you to know that you don't have to make it as full as mine. But I thought these little flowers would be really cute to brighten it up a little bit with that little bit of yellow color. I have never been trained as a florist or worked a lot with florals other than just in crafting. And so I just do kind of what looks good to my eye or what feels good. Look for pieces of inspiration. If you're having a hard time knowing what pieces in there, look on Pinterest and look up floral arrangements or like fall wreaths. Kind of get an idea of the different types of elements that you want, and then try to match those as best as you can. These are some of these little wheat florals from Dollar Tree, and I didn't feel like I was missing anything until I put these in, and I was like, oh, those really do add like that harvest feel to it. I'm so glad that I had those and decided to put them in, because I feel like that really does I love how this is turning out. I hope you guys like these projects. I have so much fun coming up with different ideas and different ways to make them doable for you, and you can customize them to any season with any type of sign. It's fun to also do like a circular sign on the square shape if you want to. It's just, I'm looking at it right here, looking to make sure that I've got everything that I need in there and everything, and I'm just so happy with how it turns out. But go with what you have, or go into Dollar Tree or to your craft store and just look for some pieces, or if you find a little sign that you want to do something with, and just start building it. This sign had a hanger on it there that had some little holes in the sign, so I just tied some little twine knots, and I'm just gluing those in so that way it has a finished look, like maybe it's hanging on that sign. And that way you don't have that. Now, another little tip, if you have a heat tool like this, is it's great to get any of your hot glue spider webby things that get all over. It kind of melts those away and just disintegrates those away. So I always blast my project if I've used any hot glue to kind of get those away. But here's the final piece that you have, and I just think this is absolutely stunning. They're beautiful, and it's something that is a unique design. And you guys are going to be so happy with your finished project when you try these. I've had a few of you message me that do craft shows that said you've started to make these for your different seasons and that you sell out of them and that you get very good money for them. And I can believe it because they're beautiful and it's fairly easy to do. So let me know what you guys think of this and let me know if you're going to try it. I love picking up these different blocks at Dollar Tree. They come out every season with a few different designs of these, and I'll pick them up 2 or 3 at a time and have them for different projects. Now, this is just a piece that I had used prior just in my stash, and it's about 5 inches. The measurement really doesn't matter too much. You just do what's going to fit your pieces that you're using, and I'll show you kind of what I mean in a moment here. Now, the paint that I'm using is just some chalk paint, and I'm doing a very messy coat on here. I did just use some water, like a spray bottle of water and a putty knife to scrape off the original design from Dollar Tree. So that's how you would get that off. Now I'm just taking some scrapbook paper here. This one came from Hobby Lobby, I believe last year or the year before. They have very similar designs from year to year, so just get what matches your decor. And I traced out that little rectangle shape there, and then I will just cut outside of my line there. So I want this to be just slightly bigger than my surface because I want to clean it up, and I'll show you that here in a moment. To get this paper adhered to my surface, I'm just using my trusty purple Elmer school glue. You guys, I love this stuff, and if you like using it in your craft projects, I'm going to tell you a little secret. This time of year and fall time at back to school, the back to school stuff will start to go on clearance as the kids go back to school. And I swear they always have, at least at my Walmarts, they always have a ton of this glue, and they mark it down super, super cheap, like 25 cents for one of those big things that's normally like $2.50 or something. So watch for that because it's a great deal. I buy it in bulk and I totally stock up on it this time of year when it's back to school. Now I'm taking my brayer and I'm just going to roll this on here, and that's going to get out any air bubbles. It's going to make sure that you get a good bond between your paper and your surface. Now the paper where it's slightly bigger, you're going to have a little bit of it hanging over the edge, and that's exactly what we want because we'll take a fingernail file and I'm just going to file slowly in a downward motion on this paper here against the surface, and you can see that edge coming off. So it's going to make that edge look completely like it was made to go on this surface. So it's going to make them look as one, not that it was paper glued to your surface. Now I decided to take this a step further, and I am sanding a little bit more into the paper and the block just because I wanted a little bit more of a rounded edge to it, so in the rounded corner, so it did look a little more rustic. That's definitely my style. It just depends on if that's something you want to do or not. If you don't want to take this step, by all means don't. Now you can see that there's a little bit of the whiteness to the paper there from it being sanded. So I'm just taking a little bit of antiquing wax. Just any antiquing wax, water-based, will work. And I'm using a baby wipe, but a wet paper towel would also work. And I'm just going to go around this edge, and it's just going to tone that down so you don't see the white. I decided to kind of go over the paper there and then the rest of the block with the little bit of antiquing wax also, just to tone that white down just a little bit. That's something that wouldn't be necessary, but once I started doing it, I really did like the way that it looked. So this has been sitting in my stash for a couple of years. It's just a pumpkin like pick for your planters, boxes like on your porch or something. You could easily use these from Dollar Tree. You could use something from a sign like this right here. I've also seen different picks at Walmart that you could grab to use. You just need a pumpkin shape that's a little bit smaller than your surface. So I just took the backing or that stick off of my pumpkin, and then I'm sitting here with some Spanish moss trying to decide whether or not to put this on. It's a very nice clean look without it. However, I do end up liking the texture that this Spanish moss adds. Plus it gives you a good surface to glue your pumpkin to. It really is a matter of if you like it or if you don't. I did end up liking it just because I love to add different texture to different projects. I felt it almost added a little bit of a French country touch to this, and so I definitely loved it. So I'm just using some hot glue to glue that down, and we're talking just the littlest bit of Spanish moss. Don't overdo it and have it look like a bird's nest or anything, or have it be too shaggy. You want it so it's not going to get all over your house or anything like that. But just be careful when you're gluing it down, because the glue does seep through there, and every time I do this, I swear I end up going, ouch, that's hot. I forget. So just remember that. Then I just used some hot glue to glue this pumpkin on top of that Spanish moss, and look at how beautiful this turns out. This turns out so simple, and I just think it will be the perfect little piece to sit on a shelf or to tuck in your home decor for fall. If you even wanted to take it a step further and put some words on it over the paper there, or paint it a solid color, put something on it. I just love the simplicity of this paper though. I'm very anxious to know what you guys think of this project. Do you guys like it?
I always have a bunch of fall florals left over, or little scraps or pieces, and so I wanted to come up with a way to kind of use all of those that you might have. You could even just buy a sprig of flowers or pick of flowers at Dollar Tree and do the same thing with it. You could even find some beautiful fall leaves and dry them and do them with ones you may already have in your yard for free. I'm just starting with one of these blocks from Dollar Tree that has kind of the three little almost looks like shiplap, so we're going to go with that, like these little shiplap blocks, I guess. And I'm just taking some fabric that I have. I've used this fabric for several different projects, for Easter and Christmas, and now I'm using it for fall. And so it's just kind of perfect to use some of those scraps you may have. I'm just going to make sure that my little square of fabric has a raw edge on all of the edges, because I wanted it to look very farmhouse, country, frayed, like maybe this had just been around for a really long time. And so that's the look I was going for. If you want to seam the edges and sew them so it's nice and crisp, you could do that as well. And then I'm just using this little mini press right here. This is one of those purchases that I thought, would I really use this that much? And you guys, I use this all the time. I mean, it's plugged in constantly while I'm doing projects because I always reach and use it. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm just using hot glue to get this little square of fabric on here. I'm just going to make a cute little pocket here to tuck some florals down into. So I just want to glue the sides and the bottom edge, because I want to leave that top as an open pocket so we can slip some things in there. Now I thought it would be fun here to fold this down and kind of have it have a little more of a casual look here. So I'm just going to glue it with that in mind, so I don't take the glue on the edges all the way to the top, so that way I can fold it down. And then I'm just using my little mini press here to crease that, and so that's going to stay down. You can put a little touch of glue up underneath the sides to help it stay folded down if you would like as well. I did add a little bit of trim. This helps to kind of mask the glue lines, because sometimes you can see the glue seeping through the fabric a little bit there. I'm not sure if using a different type of glue, maybe even some wood glue or something, would eliminate that, but I had this cute little burlap ribbon that I put for a little edge all around there, which I felt looked really cute and kind of give it a little bit more of a casual farmhouse look here. So just hot gluing that up underneath the seam there so it looks like it's part of it. This honestly reminded me a little bit, if you had the mason jars from Dollar Tree, those little mason jar cutouts, that this would be a really cute project to do with those as well, with those shapes. Now this is just a little harvest sign. It came in a bundle of like 4 or 5 that I purchased at the craft store last year. So it was just kind of left over. So this would be completely optional, but a lot of, like, if you're looking for something else to kind of bring in, if you don't have something like this, is they do a lot of the wood laser cutouts at Dollar Tree, or even like the metal wording or the wood cutout wording. Something like that would be really cute on the front of this as well. But just leaving it plain would be something you could do that would also be extremely beautiful, I think, and a little bit more simple. I did put a little teeny twine bow up there, like this tag had been tied onto the fabric there. So that was just a little addition that I added on there. But now for the fun part of putting some of these little florals I have. Now, here's a little hack for you, and I've taught you guys this before, but if you are new to my channel or haven't seen this before, when you buy florals at Dollar Tree, some of them are really crinkled and bent, and if you just blast them for just a couple of seconds with your heat tool, it flattens them right out like they were brand new. So it's a great hack to use, and a lot of times you can find a lot of the really like creased florals at Dollar Tree because they're the ones that nobody wants, and now you know how to fix it. So I'm just taking a bunch of the scraps that I have here and just sticking like a little piece here and there. I maybe go a little overboard. You'll have to let me know what you think on that, but you can do it as simple or as much as you want. But like I had mentioned in the beginning, I think even some beautiful fall leaves from your yard, or maybe a walk or hike that you go on, would also be extremely beautiful in there. But this is just kind of a fun way to bring some fall florals into your decor or your shelf or your tiered tray, wherever you're going to set this. And I just think it looks really beautiful and very farmhouse. As I was searching for French country ideas, I saw a lot of terracotta pots that kind of had like a very aged look or like a plaster finish to them. So I thought I would try that with this pot that I have, and you can use any type of terracotta pot that you might have. I'm just putting some baking soda in this little dish, and I'm just adding some chalk paint to it. You probably could use like spackle really easy to do this same texture, maybe water it down a little bit, because I felt like it was almost the same type of consistency, texture as I was mixing this. And mix it really good before you add more paint, because I've had seen a lot of people do this that say that you'll keep adding paint thinking it's dry, and then you end up with it too liquidy. So just kind of mix it really good before you decide to add more paint, because I thought I was going to have to add so much more, and I ended up not. Now I'm just going to brush this on to the pot here. And this is what I decided to do first, was kind of brush it on like this. But as you'll see in a minute, I found another method that works a little bit better. But I mean, this works fine too, and you can do it as heavy or as light as you want. I end up taking a stencil brush from Dollar Tree, and I'll dip it in my baking soda mixture there, and then I will just kind of push up and down. And I'm doing it pretty heavily because I want that heavy texture to it. And then I just want some of the terracotta to show, and I could have left more. It just kind of is a matter of personal preference. This was the first time I tried this particular technique, and so, like I said, I think I got a little heavy, but I do like how it turns out, and it was kind of fun to do too. So now I just have a couple of pumpkins. I used this pumpkin in a lot of my displays last year. And then I bought this one at Hobby Lobby. I think Dollar Tree has them too. It ended up being like $1. And then I'm just going to make a little topiary out of these. So I'm just taking some styrofoam here, and I'm just using my putty knife to cut off the edges. And then I will just kind of squish or push that styrofoam down into my little terracotta pot here. This particular pumpkin did come from Hobby Lobby. I have seen them there this year. Like I said, I used it in a few displays last year, and I thought it would be perfect for this, but I loved the greenery that it had. So if you're using one that you have on hand, or you're using one from Dollar Tree, you might want to add some greenery around the bottom, because that really does soften it. So I stick it in that styrofoam, and then I'm just using a wooden dowel, and I'm just using that to get the pumpkins through. Now this particular one I turned upside down to kind of push it through first, because I just wanted to have control of where the hole was going. And it has like that, around the styrofoam of the pumpkin is like, I don't even know what it is, like a film or something. So I just wanted to puncture that with some control. So that's why I did it that way. So now I just want to go in between each of these layers of the pumpkin and add some embellishing. So along the bottom, I'm just using some Spanish moss, and I'm just sparingly putting this in. So I'll just kind of look where it seems a little bit bare. I'll add a little glue, and then I just kind of will push that moss in. And then I have these little picks of hydrangeas, and I thought this golden color looked so beautiful. I kind of love the muted tones that this ends up having.
So you could totally go with what your personality is on this and do it as colorful as you want, as muted as you want. You wouldn't even have to use the flowers. You could just do greenery. I thought, like, if you like that look of like the feathers that you see in some of the fall arrangements, that would look really cute kind of between the layers. The possibilities are endless. And this is the fun part of creating, is getting to do what matches your taste and your style. So I'm starting this next layer, putting the Spanish moss all the way around, because I wanted that to kind of come out between the different layers. And then I take some boxwood. This is from Walmart, the boxwood pick, and it's $1.97 for a pick, and it's an amazing deal because you can do so many different projects with each one. It comes with a bunch on one pick. So I'll just pull off like 6 or 7 of the little teeny pieces of the pick, little sprigs, I guess we'll call them. And I just glue those around and then intermittently just kind of put in some of those hydrangeas. And I'm just using hot glue between all of the different layers here. And then as I get around, I'll push that top layer of the pumpkin down. I can put a little extra glue there, but there was a lot of glue there to kind of hold it. So moving on to this last layer here, again, you can just see I put the Spanish moss on top. I'm just using these little silicone spatulas so I don't burn my fingers, because if you've worked with Spanish moss and hot glue before, you know it seeps through very easily. And I'll just place that top pumpkin there to kind of see how much I want to do or how it looks. And then you can see on this layer, I'm just gluing these little sprigs across like this, and just kind of doing, instead of doing a number 4 around the pumpkin, I just do a number 3, and I do the same thing with those hydrangeas. And then this one, I do put a little bit of glue there to hold that top pumpkin down, and then I just push that down and hold it. Now I did go back and add some boxwood to the bottom layer so it looked cohesive on all of the different layers, and then just kind of spun it around to make sure that everything looked how I wanted it. If I needed to trim any of the Spanish moss or anything like that. But I'm loving this. I think this turns out absolutely beautiful. Some of the ones I saw online that were close to this size were upwards of $80, and some of this was just from pumpkins I had on hand. But I just think this is beautiful, and I love how this turns out. I love how this project turns out, so I hope that you do too. But I'm just taking some wheat that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. I purchased 3 bundles of it. I did not end up using all 3. Buy it when it's on 50% off. There's no need to pay full price. If you happen to have access to any other type of grain, barley, wheat, triticale, anything like that, even like foxtail, something like weeds that grow on the side of the road, you can easily stop and pick some of those, or use anything that you have like that, any type of decorative grass you might have in your garden when you're ready to trim it down for the fall. Anyway, I'm just taking these, and what I'm doing is you just take any size of canister that you would like. I liked the square shape of this particular one, so that's why I chose this. And I cut these down to the size, the length that I want. And I just use some hot glue along the edge of the jar. And I just one by one take these and place them with the hot glue. It's so simple and so easy, and I love how this turns out. I would like to say that right now would be a really good point to add a couple of rocks to your jar that you're using to help give it a little bit of stability. You can add them later, but right now is the perfect time to add them. So after I get all of my pieces of wheat here, I want to make a little decorative bow. So I do take some of this chicken wire ribbon that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and be very careful with this. You should probably wear gloves when you use this. I have worked with chicken wire a few times and had sometimes not end so well. So I should have learned my lesson, but this went okay for me. I just used some wire cutters to cut it, and then I did just kind of wind on the back side of it. I just kind of wound the little loose edges together to do to get it to hold. And I did 2 layers of this because I'm going to put a ribbon around the middle where these 2 pieces join, if that makes sense. You'll see what I do here in just a moment. And I do apologize because my camera was being very finicky this day. So I do just take a piece of this ribbon and I just glue it all around. You can see how that covers the middle. And then I do make another bow out of this same ribbon that I did lose the footage for. Again, I do apologize for that. But you've seen me make some bows before. You can do whatever type of bow you want. And then I just glue that onto the front. And I did use another little black and cream ribbon to kind of embellish it a little more. But look at how cute this looks. I love this. I think this is going to be so fun
kind of a good transition piece between summer and fall, in my opinion. This could even be something that you might leave out year-round in your house. What do you guys think of this one? Earlier this year, I purchased this sugar mold off of Amazon. It was like $15 or something like that, and you can see how I've decorated for other seasons. I've done several videos on it. I'll put a link down in the description box for the mold and for the different videos. But I had a few requests to make sure that I showed what I was doing for fall, so here you go. The little pumpkin topiaries came from Walmart. They were like $1.14. And then I just had a couple other picks that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, but you could easily use ones from Dollar Tree, ones from Walmart, whatever your style and your taste like. I'm just letting you know where I got mine. And then I did pull the pumpkins off of them. I just wanted 3 little pumpkins and then the pumpkin topiaries and then a lot of foliage. So I'm just pulling up, you can see in each of the little cups of the sugar mold, I have some Spanish moss and then some reindeer moss. And I did just stick some skewers in the bottom of these pumpkins so they would go in easily. I like to take this sugar mold and decorate it temporarily so that way I can change it out from season to season. If you've ever bought these and had candles in them and you're like, what do I do with this now that the candles are burnt out and all the wax is gone? This is a perfect thing to do with these. So I stuck each of those pumpkins in, and you can kind of see that the middle one is a little bit different than the ones on the sides. And then I am taking these picks and I'm kind of bending them so they'll fit down in, because who knows if I'll do this next year for fall or if I'll use these picks for something else. So I didn't want to trim too much or anything off of them, and so you can kind of see how I loop that over and I just tuck that down in. And this is pretty sturdy. There's quite a bit of the Spanish moss tucked in each of those little holes there, so that way there is some stability when I stick these in, so I don't need any glue or anything. Now this one I had to use my pliers to wrap that thing around because it had a very stiff wire on the end of it. And I'm just going to stick these cute little pumpkin topiaries. I love these. I have IKEA plants all over my house. If you guys know what I'm talking about, those little like lamb's ear IKEA plants. I'll buy these topiaries and just stick one in each of those. I just think it's such a fun way to add a little bit of fall into your house. I think those are so cute. So now you can easily just leave it like this and be done. But I like to add a little bit extra to things. You guys know this. So I have this little sign that I got at Hobby Lobby, and then I have this ticking ribbon. I think it might have come from Joann's. I can't remember. It might have been Hobby Lobby, actually. Anyway, I'm just putting this ribbon around, which, of course, both of these would be optional. You could do one without the other very easily. And what I do is I just measure the ribbon, and then I'll use the smallest amount of hot glue to glue it onto the back of the mold and then onto itself. So that way I can easily peel that off when the next season comes. I'm very excited to decorate this for Christmas, so you'll have to watch and see how I do that. And then I just glue a Jenga block onto the front of the ribbon because I want that sign to pop out a little bit, and I want to add as little glue to the sugar mold itself. And you can kind of see I do that, and then I just kind of fluff it up and just make sure everything is placed exactly where I want it to be. But look at how adorable this looks. Oh my gosh, I love this. Now you could add hot glue into the mold if this is something you were wanting to sell and make it more permanent, or add some styrofoam down in there. But I love the fact that I can change this out and do different seasons and things. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, and if you want me to keep showing you different seasons how I decorate this. I love how this Dollar Tree fall DIY turns out. So I'm just taking a couple of these little block signs from Dollar Tree. They're different sizes. I thought the staggering size was really cute. Now I did rip the paper off first, and then I sprayed with the residue that was left behind with just some water. And then I'm going in with a baby wipe and a little putty knife here just to scrape that off, so that way I can paint these the color that I want and not have any of that paper residue or glue or anything left behind. So now I'm just measuring out. I want to stagger the size of these pumpkins. So I'm just trying to eyeball how far down I want to do and to see what it looks like. I'm just doing not a full coat of paint because I do want this to look pretty distressed. So I'm just kind of doing like a messy coat on here, I guess, and just kind of making it look really farmhouse, really shabby, that kind of stuff. And so you can, of course, paint these whatever color matches your decor, or if you're like, I do not like that style of the farmhouse paint them solid, whatever you want to do. So now these little pumpkins from Dollar Tree have a lot of glitter on them, and since I am going to paint these to match my colors for fall, I scraped that glitter off of them. Now I did just kind of measure here. You can see how far down I want to cut that sunk up pumpkin. And so I drew my straight line, and then I drew the corners on. I traced those from the other pumpkin so I could cut it down and have it match. So hopefully that makes sense. I just showed you, I just used my little hand miter saw there. I have a link to that down in my description box if you want to check that out on Amazon. I did pick mine up at Lowe's, so if you have like a close home
I want to say Home Depot, but any type of home improvement store, there we go. Then you can check there. They're like $10-15 or something like that. I love using Waverly's pumpkin and moss for fall decor. I think it has that perfect farmhouse muted tone to it. So I give these just a couple of coats of each of those colors, and then I just sand around the edges. I really liked how it kind of brought out the color they originally were. It kind of was a good contrast, so I was pretty happy with that. And then I'm taking some just white chalk paint here and just doing a really light dry brush to kind of add a little bit of visual interest to them because they were kind of flat and plain looking. And then I did forget to mention, but I think you saw me gluing the stems back on, I did just paint those with some brown paint. Now you can do whatever you would like to do for your lettering on these signs. I just got these from Cricut's Design Space and just cut them out with my cutting machine. You could easily do some handwriting on them, print on tissue paper. I've done several tutorials on that. I've also done water slide decals, anything like that. There's so many different ways to get words onto things. So whatever method you like to use, go ahead and do that. But I just really like the saying Happy Harvest. I thought that was super cute. And then I do just use some wood glue and also some hot glue to get these all glued together. Now you did see me take a little bit of the dry brushing and go over the vinyl letters. That kind of gives it a faded look as well, so it looks like the letters were meant to go on the sign. So just keep that in mind if you're ever doing vinyl on a project you're distressing, to dry brush over the letters a little bit to help them look aged as well. And then I'm just embellishing this just with some ribbon that I had, some cute little black and white buffalo check ribbon I thought was really cute on there, and then just some raffia, and you can see I'm just kind of scrunching that up. I thought it was kind of fun. I also have this cute little pitberry, and I've used this in a couple of projects, and what I love to do with it is wrap it around like the end of your paintbrush or a pencil or something and give it kind of that corkscrew look. And then I just wrapped it around the stem on these, and I love it with the pumpkins because to me it just looks like little pumpkin vines growing. I just think they're super cute, and it's so fun to be able to take these pieces and embellish them however you want to kind of give them that cute little personal touch. I did the same thing on each of them so they matched really well. Then I just glue them together and glue them onto the cute little sign. I absolutely love how this turns out. To me, it looks so high end. It looks like something you would truly buy at a store or at a boutique or out of like a catalog or something. I just think it turned out so cute. It is so fun. It's perfect for fall, and it's something you definitely could leave up the whole season. I love that Dollar Tree is starting to carry these cutting board signs. I love making them over. They are cute the way they are, but it is always fun to kind of make them match your decor and customize them a little bit. So I'm just flipping this one over, and I'm just using my heat gun, and I'm just using this to heat up that sticker on the back because I'm going to make the back the front. I'm just going to cover it in my base color of paint. I'm choosing just to do plaster from Waverly's chalk paint, and I just give it 2 or 3 coats to make sure that it is covered how I would like it. And I want to put some orange stripes on the bottom of this. I thought that would be really cute for fall. These will all take you from fall right into Thanksgiving, so you can leave them up all through the season. And I'm just taking some pumpkin color chalk paint, and I am just using my little stencil tool here. This is just one of those little packages you get at the Dollar Tree, these little foam brushes here, the circular size. And I'm just pouncing up and down with a little bit of paint on there and just making sure that I don't overdo it with the paint and do a couple of coats. And you can see that there is no bleed through at all. Once that's dry, I'll stick on another piece of tape just a little bit lower, and then I'm just making a little ticking stripe here. I thought it would be cute to kind of have 2 littler stripes below that main stripe. So I just kind of eyeball the size. If you're someone who likes to measure and be perfect and exact, go ahead and measure. I just kind of eyeballed it. I figured that it's going to be sitting up in my china hutch or in my cupboard. It'll probably have some things in front of it. So if they weren't quite even, it was okay, but I think for eyeballing it, it ends up pretty good. I found these darling little cookie cutters at Dollar Tree. I don't make cookies a whole lot, so I bought these with the pure intent to decorate with them, so I'm going to use them on this cutting board here. But I realized I need to put some craft paper on the back, which was the front of the sign. This has some glitter on it. You can try and sand it off and everything if you want. I found that it's easier. I just use Elmer's school glue, which you guys, if you've watched me before, know that I'm obsessed with that stuff. I use it all the time. And then I just do some hot glue around the edge, and I'll take my brayer and just kind of go over while that glue is still pliable. That helps the sign stick all over, and it's not going to come off or
curl up or anything. And then I just am taking my little emery board here and I go around the edges. This is sped up. It is a slow motion that I do, but you just want to sand away from the back of the cutting board. That's going to give you a nice crisp line. Once I get that sanded away, then I'll kind of go over the side of it to make sure that all of that comes off. So now I'm just taking my cookie cutters here and I'm just tying some twine to them so I can dangle them from the cutting board. You can see that I added some jute twine at the top there. Don't worry, I end up removing that because of how I want to stick these on. I'm realizing now that there's not really a way for me to stick the twine from these tied together, and I just stagger them, as you can see here. But there's not really a way for me to slide that up through. I tied it too tight, and so I just remove that from the back of it, and then I'm just going to decide where I want those to hang from, and I'm going to tie off that twine there. And then I'm just going to hot glue this on the sign. You'll see exactly how I do that here. Just trim the top of that little twine off, and then I can go back and wrap the jute twine around the top of my cutting board here on the handle. And you can use ribbon, you can use twine, you can use nautical rope, whatever you would like. And I just tie that off in the back, and then I just cut it fairly close. If you want to add a little bit of hot glue to make sure it's not going to come undone, that's fine. And that just allows these cookie cutters to kind of hang down here as a little decoration on this. I thought those were really cute. I felt like it needed a little something extra, so I'm going to make a scrap bow. So I'm just taking various ribbons from the Dollar Tree's fall line. Now that gingham check ribbon, I do believe I got at Hobby Lobby. I have not been lucky enough to find the black and white that they have at Dollar Tree, so definitely keep your eye out for that. I've gotten like yellow and white and red and white, but I've never gotten the black and white. And then I also add just a little strand of pitberry on here, so that way I can kind of twirl it up like some pumpkin vines once I get that on. So I kind of cut it down to size. I'm just cutting all of the ribbons just a little bit at an angle. You can dovetail them. However you want to do a ribbon on this is great. And then for the center of it, I had just tied it off with twine. I'm just taking that orange gingham there, and I am just taking it and putting it over the edge and gluing it in the back. So that just kind of makes it have a nice little center there. And then I just use hot glue to glue that on the top there, and you can see I missed a couple strands. So I just go back in and kind of cut those up. Apparently I forgot to show you where I just use a pencil and I just twirl that pitberry around it so that way it came up with a little curly Q on those. And then I'm just tying the little handle on the top. Now you could spray some water on this. It will help it lie a little bit more flat because sometimes your twine gets kind of rolled up in the roll there. But look at how cute this looks. Of course, it's not food safe. It's just a sign from Dollar Tree that we made into our own custom sign. It's going to be darling to kind of bring that fall feel into your kitchen.
If you guys are anything like me, when you see these packages of these 3 twine rolls at Dollar Tree, I seem to always pick them up a couple at a time. I think they're found over close in the automotive section at my Dollar Tree, but anyhow, I have several packages of them. So I thought it would be fun to kind of take them and make a unique spin on a pumpkin here. So I just take 5 of the rolls. You'll have 6 in 2 packages, but you'll just leave 1 to use for crafting projects. I take 5 of them and I'm just trying to see what I want to use for my pumpkin stem. I originally thought a spindle would be really cute, and if I had a thicker wood spindle, I think that's what I probably would use. Instead I end up using a little finial that works really cute. I'll show you what that looks like. But anyhow, be creative what you use for your stem. You could even use a stem off of another pumpkin you might have taken off for a different project. I take some thicker twine. I get this twine at Walmart. It's quite thick, not quite like rope, but thicker than just crafting twine, your normal crafting twine. I wrap it around about 3 times and then just tie it off in a little bow. If you don't want the bow, just tie it in a knot and cut off all of the little ends and everything so that way you don't have the bow there. It would also be fun to embellish this in so many different ways. The creative possibilities are completely endless here with this project. So now I want this little stem here. This is just a finial. This is what I end up using. They come in a package of 3 or 4 of them at Hobby Lobby in their woodpile section. You could also use any type of finial that you could find. Again, be creative with this part. And I did stain it with some antiquing wax to kind of tone down that natural wood color. You could paint it green. You can really do whatever you would like to. This project is so versatile. Now I just had to stuff a little something down in the middle of the pumpkin there to have a surface to glue my finial to. So you could use, depending on how thick your item you're using for your stem is, you may not need to do that. But I just stuffed some, I think it was just like paper that I stuffed down there. I can't recall exactly, but I think it was just some of that paper that they wrap your stuff in at Dollar Tree. I just stuffed that down in there. You can't see it. If you were worried about it, you could definitely put some Spanish moss at the bottom of it to cover it, but you can't see it from the bottom. So just kind of use your best judgment with that. I then take some hot glue and put that down into the center, and I'm just going to hold that finial to make sure that it stands up straight. I just think this turns out so cute. It was so fun to come up with the different ways to embellish it and everything. So I just make sure that that stem is really good and dry there with that hot glue. And then I go around the edge because I want to add a little bit of Spanish moss. I think the Spanish moss adds a good texture to your DIYs. And I also think it looks so fun with the fall DIYs because it looks like the dried kind of vines and stuff from the pumpkin. And it also adds like a little softness around it, so it's not, you don't have such harsh edges. So I just gently place that all around, and then I take this lamb's ear that came from Dollar Tree, and I am just going to snip off a couple of leaves. So you can use whatever kind, if you have some different foliage that you want to use. We always have like leaves left over from different projects we do. I'm sure any crafter knows that. You maybe have a bag with a bunch of different things. Reach into that for this. Find some different things to stick on here. I really liked the look of the gray tones to the greenish gray tones of the lamb's ear with this. I thought it had a really good natural looking tone. I know that's not what pumpkin leaves look like, but again, pumpkins aren't made out of twine rolls either. So we're just using our imagination here. I'm just using some hot glue to stick that down in there. It slips in really easy in between those rolls of twine to get a nice look there. Now in my stash, I had this package of these little sunflowers. They're adorable and they would look so cute on this. And I kind of go back and forth trying to decide if I put them on the pumpkin, if I don't. You'll have to let me know. And I mean, you'll see me in a minute here go back and forth on if I should put it on or not. I ultimately decide not to put it on, but look how cute. I mean, even now I'm looking at it going, it really does look so cute on there. So you can kind of see that you can embellish it any way that you decide. I have this pipberry here, and you can pick this up at Dollar Tree, Walmart, any craft store, Amazon. And I just decided to wrap it around my fingers. I love to give it kind of that corkscrew look. I love the fact that you're going to add a little, like another color on there. So this comes in white, it comes in orange, it comes in all different colors. And the white is just what I happen to have there. So whatever color you want to choose, it's going to bring a different element, a different texture to your piece. And I just love it. And I think it works really well when you're doing fall DIYs to have this, because when you curl it up in that corkscrew shape, it really does look like the pumpkin vines. And I think it's so fun. And it really does have a good place and a good purpose on it. So I just wrap it around that finial there, and you kind of can pull it. It's a wire, so you can stretch it and see how cute it would look even with that sunflower. I still am trying to decide, do I put it on? Don't I put it on? I really had a hard time deciding. Do you guys ever have a hard time deciding, is it going to be too much if I glue it? I don't want to glue it and then hate it. You'll have to let me know down in the comments if you ever struggle with that, but I do all the time. You can see I ultimately decide to leave it. I still think it turns out really, really cute, but you definitely can jazz this up as much as you want. Leave it as simple as you want. I thought this way it matched any type of decor. It had a very neutral tone to it, so that way anybody could take this and put it right into their fall decor. But I love coming up with different items to make pumpkins out of that you don't ordinarily see, and I thought it was really fun to take these twine rolls and do a pumpkin out of those. What do you guys think of this one?
I really love checking the sign blank section at my craft stores. And when I was at Hobby Lobby the other day, they had some clearance sign blanks. And you can see this one was normally around $22 and it was on clearance for about $5. Now they have signs this size all the time, and you just wait for them to go 40 or 50% off to purchase them. But if you find them on clearance, definitely grab them. Now they have this beautiful aisle at the craft store, Hobby Lobby, at Joann's, Michael's. They sell a lot of different sizes of letters that you can get to have say things. They also sell them at Walmart. They don't have as much of a selection there, but they're growing. They may get to that point. I also know on Etsy you can buy letter cutouts. I've seen tin ones at the craft store. And I also, if you like, have a cutting machine, you could do this out of vinyl if you wanted. I just got some of the letters to spell out the word pumpkin, and they were very white and crisp, so I wanted to kind of age them a little bit. So I'm taking just a little bit of Waverly's Stone color, and I'm just kind of dipping my finger in that, and I go along the edge of each of these letters. I thought that was kind of a subtle way to age these to match the gray that's on the sign that I'm using. And I even will go in and dry brush a little bit on these. Very light distressing, but enough just so they're not so like in your face, bright white and shiny. This was just such a fun and quick project. It's always nice getting a sign blank that's already ready to go, and especially if you grab your letters, you don't even have to distress them. You're just ready to glue your letters down and have a beautiful looking sign for a fraction of what you would pay for it if you were to buy it new or buy it at a craft fair. Now I'm just lining my ruler, my straight edge up with the edge of the sign, and also kind of helping to get those letters. Actually, you can see I'm bumping the one letter there, but this is just kind of, and I apologize, you have to look at my hair here, I'm so sorry, but I'm just doing my ruler this way to kind of help get these as straight as I can. That is one thing when you're working with 3D letters like this versus a cutting machine, is your transfer paper that you have on a cutting machine eliminates this step here, because everything's already like cut like perfectly in a straight line. So that is one thing when you're doing the 3D letters like this. I love the look of them, but I always stress out a little bit on getting everything lined up perfectly. So after I get everything lined up to where it is spaced correctly and all in line, I'm just putting my first letter there. I put a little bit of glue underneath it to kind of help it, and then I can kind of use that as my jumping off point for the rest of them. And you can kind of see here that I matched each letter up with the letter before, and I even pull out my ruler, the straight edge, to kind of line the rest of them up here. I think once I glued that down, I went, ooh, I probably should make sure I'm getting these. So you'll see here just a little bit of hot glue. You can use super glue. I've used a lot with these. Works with, like, the Gorilla Glue works really well. But I was just using a little bit of hot glue today when I had everything going. So that's just what I stuck with. But here's where I put my ruler down so I can line this up, and I just set this letter right down, making sure that everything is level and in line so it all looks nice and professional looking. One thing I do is I take my heat tool here, my heat gun, and I go over it, because when you're using hot glue, sometimes you get those little webs, the stringy things from hot glue. Using your heat tool is going to help to melt those away, almost like vaporize them. And so I always go over my project with that, give it a blast or two just to kind of get rid of all of those. Now these were still a little bit shiny in my opinion, and I wanted them to be more matte. The rest of this sign is matte. So rather than sanding everything, I just went with some matte Mod Podge over the top of them, or satin Mod Podge, to kind of take that sheen away to make them look not so glossy, but have that more matte finish so the sign all looked cohesive together. But this was such a fun and simple project, and I do love how this turns out. It's such a great size. I'm so excited to use this in my decor, and for less than about $20 that I paid for the letters and the sign, I think this is such a great addition to my fall decor. What do you guys think of this? I would like to thank you so much for joining me for today's compilation video. I hope that you enjoyed all of these DIYs. If you had a favorite, let me know down in the comments. I always love to hear which ones you guys like the best. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you like the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.